A desperate alien civilization sent a final cry for help, and Earth's Deathworlders answered, striking with precision, courage, and absolute power. Watch how one species stood against annihilation and reshaped the galaxy. Subscribe now for more. The galaxy was quiet when the old warning stations detected the strange signal. A thin whisper of sound drifted through the dark, crossing dead star systems and broken planets before finally reaching the listening arrays of distant civilizations. At first, no one understood it. The message was filled with static, fear, and a voice trembling as if the speaker was running for their life. But when the signal repeated again and again, every species finally realized it was an SOS, the last desperate cry of a dying alliance begging for help before disappearing forever. The message came from a region once known for peace and culture, a place where many species lived side by side in harmony. Now the transmission showed burning cities, empty streets, and skies filled with dark insect-like shapes diving from above. The Veritech swarm had arrived months ago, destroying planets one after another, leaving nothing alive behind them. They moved like a storm that never ended, a wave of destruction that grew stronger with every world they consumed. The few survivors left in that sector gathered in hidden bunkers and damaged ships, trying to send warnings to anyone who might listen. Their technology was failing, their power was almost gone, and their planets were turning into wastelands. Still, they kept sending the same message, a single plea repeated over and over, hoping someone, somewhere, would hear them before it was too late. Many civilizations did hear it, but fear controlled their decisions. Governments shut their borders, navies refused to move, and diplomats whispered that the Veritech were unstoppable. No one wanted to risk their people or their fleets for a hopeless battle. So the signal was labeled too dangerous, and the galaxy looked away while an entire region screamed for help. On a refugee station near the border, a small group of alien survivors argued about what to do. They knew the signal alone wouldn't save them. Stronger help was needed. But their ships were destroyed and their world councils were in ruins. Some wanted to surrender to the swarm, believing it was better than dying alone. Others refused, insisting they had to keep trying to send the SOS, trying to reach anyone with courage left. One young alien named Sirali worked tirelessly to maintain the dying transmitter. Her world had fallen 2 weeks earlier, and she had watched her family taken by the swarm. She had escaped with only a damaged survival suit and a promise to herself that she would warn the galaxy no matter what it cost her. For her, the SOS was not just a signal. It was her last act of resistance, the only way she could fight back. Hours passed, then days, then weeks. The signal kept traveling through space, passing through debris fields, empty colonies, and silent defense outposts. Space was so large that the survivors were sure no one would ever respond, but still they transmitted, hoping for a miracle. What they didn't know was that far beyond their region, on the edge of an isolated spiral arm, a small blue planet picked up the signal. Earth's deep space satellites detected the SOS during a routine scan. At first, the technicians thought it was just background noise, but then they adjusted the frequency. And the terrible truth appeared on their screens. The message was raw and heartbreaking, filled with fear, explosions, and the desperate voices of people trying to escape the swarm. Humans listened silently, feeling a strange mixture of dread and determination. They had never met these alien species, never seen their worlds, never spoken their languages, but the pain in their voices felt familiar. Humanity had faced war, disasters, and destruction throughout its history. They understood what it meant to fight for survival when everyone else had given up. Across Earth's monitoring stations, officers replayed the transmission again and again. The signal grew weaker each time, fading as the survivors' power sources ran out. Soon it would disappear forever, leaving only wreckage where once entire civilizations had lived. But just before the signal began to fade completely, Earth made a choice no other world had made. Humans did not turn away. They did not hide. They did not accept defeat before even seeing the battlefield. They listened. They understood. And deep within their leaders rose something powerful and ancient, a fire that had carried humanity through its darkest times. The alien survivors had sent a final SOS, and against all expectations, the most dangerous species in the galaxy had heard it. The Deathworlders were waking, and the galaxy was about to change. The message from the dying star system spread through Earth's command centers like a cold wind. Every officer, engineer, and analyst who heard the SOS felt the same chill. The fear in the alien voices was real, and the destruction shown in the transmission was unlike anything humanity had ever witnessed. Earth had received distress calls before, but never something so desperate, never something that carried the sound of whole civilizations falling apart. Within hours, world leaders were called into an emergency meeting. Representatives from every major nation sat around the great circular table of the United Earth Council. Their faces tense. Screens around them replayed the alien SOS, showing burning cities, broken space stations, and the shadows of the Vrytek swarm, moving like a living nightmare across the sky. No one spoke at first, because everyone understood the danger without needing a single word. If Earth stepped into this war, they would be fighting an enemy that had already destroyed dozens of worlds. The Vrytek were not just powerful, they were relentless, intelligent, and fast. They didn't negotiate, didn't show mercy, and didn't leave survivors. Sending human forces meant risking war on a scale Earth had never faced, but turning away meant allowing entire species to vanish forever. General Amina Ruth was the first to break the silence. She stood, her expression calm but fierce, and said that humanity could not ignore a plea for help simply because it was dangerous. She reminded the Council that Earth itself had survived countless impossible threats, that humans had learned to fight in harsh conditions, deadly climates, and extreme environments. If any species had the strength to push back the swarm, it was the Deathworlders, the humans who had evolved on a planet full of storms, predators, and constant danger. Some Council members disagreed. They argued that humanity had just reached a period of peace and unity. They feared that joining this war might break that peace and drag Earth into a conflict with no end. They warned that the Vrytek could retaliate by attacking Earth directly, putting billions of lives at risk. For several minutes, the room filled with heated debate, voices rising as everyone fought for what they believed was right. Meanwhile, across the world, news of the SOS had already reached the public. People watched the transmitted images with shock and sadness. Social media broke into arguments, with some saying Earth needed to help and others saying humanity should protect itself first. In schools, children asked their teachers why nobody was saving the aliens. In military bases, soldiers quietly prepared their gear, waiting to see if they would be chosen. Back in the council chamber, the debate finally reached its breaking point. The chairperson called for silence and played the alien message one last time. This time, the room focused on the final words spoken by a trembling alien voice, pleading for anyone, even a stranger from a distant world, to save them from extinction. Those simple words filled the chamber with a heavy stillness. Earth's representatives looked at one another and understood something they had forgotten. Humanity had not reached the stars to become silent observers. They had journeyed outward because they believed in connection, in courage, and in standing up when others could not. With that realization, the vote was cast. By a narrow but powerful majority, Earth decided to answer the SOS, not with fear, but with strength. The Council activated an operation that had been locked away for decades, a special force created for the most dangerous missions in the universe. The Deathworlder Defense Force, trained for extreme conditions, brutal combat, and the protection of life across the stars. Across military stations, alarms sounded as elite units prepared for deployment. Engineers opened sealed hangars holding advanced ships and experimental weapons never used in open war. Scientists rushed to analyze the Vrytek technology shown in the SOS to learn any weakness. Every corner of Earth felt a sudden shift, as if humanity had awakened from a long sleep. The decision spread quickly among the alien survivors who were still sending their fading signal. They had expected silence or rejection, but instead, a message returned to them, simple but powerful. Earth has heard you. Help is coming. In that moment, hope returned to the dying sector, and fear turned into determination. For the first time in months, the aliens knew they were not alone. And for the first time in its history, Earth prepared to fight not for territory or power, but for strangers who believed humanity might be their final chance at survival. The damaged refugee ship drifted toward Earth with its lights flickering like a dying candle. For days, it had traveled through silent space, running from the Vratek swarm with only half-functioning engines and a failing life support system. Inside the ship, a handful of survivors held on to hope, even though they did not know if Earth was friendly, dangerous, or already destroyed. They had sent the SOS months ago, and now they were following the faint signal that answered them. As the ship approached the blue planet, Earth's defense sensors immediately detected it. Fighter jets rose from the atmosphere, and orbital defense drones positioned themselves in a protective formation. They had no idea if the incoming ship carried allies, enemies, or something worse. The human pilots kept their weapons ready, but their orders were clear. Do not fire unless absolutely necessary. When the ship finally entered stable orbit, Earth's communication team sent out a calm message. Their voices were steady and warm, asking the survivors if they needed medical help, food, or supplies. The aliens had never heard voices like these before, deep and confident, filled with concern instead of fear. After a moment of hesitation, the ship's captain responded, his voice weak and shaking, telling Earth that they were refugees escaping the swarm. The moment permission was granted, the refugee ship was guided gently into a secure docking bay on Earth's orbital station. As the doors opened, human medical teams rushed inside, carrying oxygen tanks, stretchers, and translation devices. They were ready for anything, but even they were shocked by what they saw. Some aliens were injured, some unconscious, and others trembling with exhaustion and trauma. They had been running for so long that many could barely stand. Among them was a young alien named Serali, the same one who had helped maintain the SOS transmitter for weeks. Her eyes widened as she saw humans for the first time. They were taller than she expected, stronger looking, and their gravity-heavy steps echoed across the metal floor. She felt a wave of fear, wondering if these Deathworlders were as dangerous as the stories said. But then one of the human doctors knelt beside her, offering water and gently checking her vitals. The kindness in his voice surprised her so deeply that she nearly cried. Across the station, other refugees stared in awe at Earth's environment. The artificial gravity felt heavy compared to their homeworlds, and the air felt thick. Every alien realized instantly that humans lived on a brutal planet, one where gravity pulled harder, weather changed violently, and survival required strength and adaptability. It explained why humans seemed so confident, so ready to face danger head-on. They had evolved to endure things many species would never survive. Once stabilized, the survivors were brought to a briefing room where Earth's commanders waited to hear their story. The aliens explained how the Vratek swarm had attacked without warning, consuming planets and populations with terrifying speed. They described how their fleets were crushed and their governments destroyed in weeks. The room fell silent as they spoke, because even humans, hardened by centuries of conflict, had never faced an enemy like this. One of the human commanders asked why the swarm had targeted their sector first. The alien captain answered with trembling hands that their region was rich in life, resources, and strategic locations. The swarm was not just feeding, it was preparing for expansion. Earth understood the implication immediately. If the swarm was not stopped soon, humanity could be next. The conversation shifted when Earth's officers told the refugees that humans had voted to fight. The aliens looked stunned. Some had believed no one would ever come to their rescue. Others had thought humans were too primitive or too isolated to help. But here were the Deathworlders, fully committed to standing against the swarm when even advanced civilizations had refused. Serali, still weak but alert, asked one question that echoed through the room. She wanted to know why humans would risk their lives for strangers they had never met. The answer she received was simple, spoken softly by a senior officer who had survived Earth's own wars. He said that humanity understood what it meant to be alone, to be powerless, and to lose everything. People who know suffering do not ignore the suffering of others. The refugees felt a warmth they had not felt in months, a mixture of safety and hope. For the first time since their worlds fell, they believed they might actually survive. As the meeting ended, the station's windows revealed Earth below, glowing like a bright jewel in the darkness of space. The refugees watched it silently, realizing this strange, dangerous world might become their last sanctuary. They did not know it yet, but their arrival marked the beginning of a new alliance, one forged in fear, trust, and the hope that together they could face whatever horrors the galaxy held. The Deathworlders had promised help, and soon the entire universe would see what that meant. Across Earth's hidden military complexes, engineers and scientists worked without rest. Every lab and hangar was alive with the hum of machines, the hiss of hydraulic systems, and the glow of computer screens. The SOS from the dying alien sector had set off an urgent race against time. Humans had to prepare weapons, ships, and strategies capable of facing the Vratek swarm, an enemy no one had ever fought before. In massive hangars, prototypes that had been locked away for decades were activated, dust was wiped from their armored hulls, and engineers ran diagnostic tests at lightning speed. The Aegis I, a massive dreadnought equipped with gravity-lance cannons capable of tearing through the thickest armor, stood in the center, its polished surface reflecting the harsh lights above. Smaller ships buzzed around it like bees, some equipped with drone swarms, others with experimental plasma rifles. Each vessel was designed for extreme combat, ready to survive environments where ordinary fleets would crumble. Soldiers of the Deathworlder Defense Force trained day and night, pushing themselves to the limit. They practiced in simulated alien environments, dropping into acid rains, jagged ice plains, and gravity-heavy landscapes. Every soldier learned to move, fight, and survive in conditions no human had ever endured. Even the new recruits, who had only heard rumors of the Vratek, grew stronger and sharper with each exercise. Their trainers reminded them constantly that they would not be fighting alone. Every action they took could save millions of lives across the galaxy. Meanwhile, alien refugees observed everything, unable to hide their astonishment. They had expected humans to be cautious, perhaps hesitant, but instead they saw a species moving faster than any of them could comprehend. Humans repaired ships, tested weapons, and mapped battle strategies while maintaining calm focus. The refugees whispered among themselves, realizing that Earth's inhabitants were not just strong, they were relentless, shaped by centuries of surviving impossible challenges. The engineers faced a special challenge, understanding the Vratek technology. Some alien artifacts had been recovered from ruined planets, showing weapons and shields far advanced from anything humans had created. Teams worked around the clock, running simulations, analyzing energy flows, and designing countermeasures. Every calculation could mean the difference between victory and annihilation. The scientists were exhausted, yet they continued, motivated by the cries in the SOS and the knowledge that the galaxy's future depended on them. Commanders held strategy meetings to decide how to deploy forces. They studied maps of the swarm's known movements, analyzed patterns in their attacks, and predicted their next target systems. Every decision was critical. A wrong move could allow the swarm to destroy entire planets before humanity even arrived. And yet, the commanders felt a rare excitement, a sense that their species could do something no one else dared, fight for justice against an enemy that had terrorized countless civilizations. Back on the hangar floors, drone swarms were tested. Each drone was programmed to act autonomously or respond to human control. They zipped through obstacle courses, avoiding simulated laser fire and debris. Some were small enough to slip into enemy armor, while others were massive, capable of cutting through swarm vessels. The soldiers learned to coordinate with these machines seamlessly, practicing attacks and defenses as if they were extensions of their own bodies. The Aegis I underwent the most intense preparation. Its gravity lance cannons were charged with exotic energy, systems calibrated to precision tolerances. Engineers installed new targeting protocols and reinforced the hull with layers of adaptive alloys. Every detail mattered because one mistake could destroy the ship or make it useless in the first engagement. Standing beside it, the Deathworlder pilots ran simulations of space battles against Vratek formations. Their hands moved over control panels instinctively, eyes scanning multiple screens, hearts beating in rhythm with the hum of engines. Throughout it all, hope grew among both humans and alien refugees. For the first time in months, the survivors began to believe that they might have allies capable of turning the tide. That Earth, a planet many considered harsh and unforgiving, could produce warriors, ships, and strategies strong enough to challenge the swarm. Humans were preparing not just to fight, but to strike with precision, courage, and unmatched force. When the final drills were complete and the ships readied for deployment, a sense of quiet confidence settled over the bases. Soldiers and engineers alike understood the stakes, but they also knew their preparations were unmatched. The galaxy had sent a plea into the darkness, and humanity had answered with fire, steel, and resolve. Every system was ready, every weapon tested, every soldier trained to the limit. Soon, they would take that fire into space, and the Vretek would learn what it meant to face the Deathworlders. Human fleets slipped through the warped space lanes, emerging above the devastated star systems. The first planets they passed were silent, shattered shells of once thriving civilizations. Cities lay in ruins, smoke rising from broken towers, and cratered landscapes marked the path of the Vretek swarm. The alien refugees on board shuddered, many unable to look out the observation windows. Every detail reminded them of what they had already lost. And what could happen again if humans failed? The first encounter with the swarm came suddenly, without warning. Dozens of Vretek raiders dropped from hyperspace, sleek, dark vessels that moved like living creatures. Their weapons fired in synchronized bursts, lancing through space debris and obliterating anything in their path. Human pilots reacted instantly, launching a defensive formation that spread like a net across the starfield. Drones swarmed forward. And fighter ships moved in tight, coordinated maneuvers, their engines leaving streaks of blue light across the void. At first, the Vretek thought they had stumbled upon a weak opponent, a small planetary species that could be crushed like the others. Their weapons struck with deadly precision, expecting minimal resistance. But humans fought differently. They did not retreat, did not scatter. They struck back with unmatched coordination, cutting through raiders, disabling ships in seconds, and counterattacking from unexpected angles. The Vretek formations wavered, confused by the aggression of a species they had underestimated. On the command bridge of the lead human battleship, Commander Hayes watched every movement. His hands moved swiftly over the control panels, issuing orders that seemed almost instinctive. Deploy Drone Wave Alpha, intercept on Vector 5, prepare gravity lances on my mark. His team responded instantly, their trust in one another absolute. Every action was calculated, yet executed with the speed of intuition. Humans were not just attacking, they were performing a deadly dance across space, each strike precise and brutal. The alien refugees could barely believe what they were seeing. Their long months of fear and despair were meeting a force unlike any they had imagined. Ships that had been expected to fail in moments survived. Drone swarms disabled entire fleets. And the human dreadnought Aegis I tore through enemy lines like a hammer. The Vretek were forced to retreat, regroup, and rethink their assumptions. An enemy they had considered weak had turned out to be lethal, adaptive, and fearless. Fighter pilots reported back constantly, their voices calm but filled with controlled adrenaline. They described targeting swarms with surgical precision, shielding weaker allies, and coordinating attacks that seemed impossible in real time. Humans were not just defending, they were dictating the battlefield, pushing the swarm back where they wanted, controlling every engagement, and slowly reclaiming space. Behind the front lines, alien survivors began recording the battle, sending encrypted messages to other sectors. Every strike, every human maneuver became a message of hope, a proof that someone, somewhere, was willing to fight the swarm with everything they had. It was not just a rescue operation anymore. It had become a demonstration of what humans could do when faced with impossible odds. The battle raged for hours, with debris and destroyed vessels littering the void. The swarm tried to regroup, sending heavier ships and larger formations, but each time, humans adapted, counterattacked, and dismantled their strategies. Commander Hayes led a daring boarding mission against a Vretek command ship, sending elite soldiers through boarding pods to disable critical systems. The move was risky, yet it succeeded, sending a clear message that humans could strike anywhere, at any time, and survive. As the first engagement ended, humans held the field. The Vretek raiders retreated to distant systems, regrouping, but now wary, afraid even. Humans had shown strength, strategy, and courage, qualities the swarm had never encountered in a single species. The alien survivors whispered among themselves, hope returning to their hearts. They had doubted anyone would help, yet the Deathworlders had come and demonstrated the impossible. In the aftermath, humans repaired their ships, tended to their wounded, and analyzed every data point from the battle. Lessons were learned, strategies refined, and confidence solidified. Even the alien refugees began preparing to assist in small ways, sharing intelligence about the swarm, their homeworlds, and weaknesses. Together, humans and survivors formed the beginnings of a united force, something the galaxy had never seen before. By the time the fleets moved on to the next sector, the message was clear across the stars. Earth's Deathworlders were not to be underestimated. They fought with precision, with courage, and with a ferocity that no one, not even the Vrytek swarm, could ignore. The first contact battle was over, but it marked the turning point where fear shifted to hope, and the galaxy began to see that humanity might be the force capable of standing against extinction itself. On the jagged surface of Thalvora, the ground shook as a massive Vrytek megapede emerged from a canyon, its armored body stretching hundreds of meters. Each step it took cracked the rocky terrain, sending clouds of dust and debris into the thin atmosphere. Human scouts on the nearby ridge froze for a moment, awed by the sheer size and menace of the creature. This was the first time they had seen a living weapon of this magnitude up close, and they knew that conventional strikes from orbit would be risky and possibly ineffective. Commander Hayes gathered his team, a small group of elite Deathworlders specially trained for high-risk ground operations. They wore reinforced exosuits designed to withstand extreme pressure, radiation, and kinetic impact. Their weapons were custom-built to pierce even the toughest alien armor, and each soldier carried explosives capable of collapsing sections of the creature from within. Hayes spoke calmly but firmly. "This is our chance. We either stop it here or the swarm continues to Thalvora's main cities. Move fast, move smart, and stay alive." The team descended in dropships, their engines roaring as they navigated the jagged cliffs, dodging falling debris and bursts of energy fire from the megapede. The alien refugees watched from a safe distance, their eyes wide with fear and fascination. None of them had ever imagined that humans would willingly dive into danger at such close quarters. The soldiers landed near the creature's legs and quickly split into smaller squads to flank it. Their movements were precise, practiced, and deadly. The megapede sensed the intrusion immediately, its massive head whipping around, mandibles snapping, and a resonating roar shaking the canyon walls. Humans were small, almost insignificant compared to its size, but they moved without hesitation, launching micro-missiles and energy darts that pierced weak points in its armor. Hayes led a squad straight to its underbelly, the one area the creature could not defend easily. They navigated the ridges, leapt across gaps, and avoided swiping limbs. Every second was a fight for survival. Every movement had to be perfect. Once under the creature, the team planted explosives on its internal structure, tiny charges compared to its massive frame, but strategically placed to target nerve clusters and structural joints. Hayes communicated with the others through encrypted channels. "Set them all. Retreat on my mark." He watched the megapede thrash violently as it realized humans had entered its most vulnerable space. Its armor plates cracked and sparks flew as the soldiers moved, keeping their balance while the ground beneath them shook with every stomp. From the cliffs above, orbital support fired precise laser strikes to distract and weaken the megapede. Coordinated perfectly with the ground team, energy beams struck joints and muscles, forcing the massive creature to bend and stumble. Hayes signaled the retreat and detonated the charges. The explosion rocked the canyon, sending fire and smoke into the air, and the megapede screamed, a horrifying sound that echoed across the landscape. Its body convulsed and collapsed, massive limbs smashing against the cliffs, shaking the earth as it fell. When the dust cleared, the Deathworlders stood among the rubble, checking one another and ensuring all were accounted for. The megapede was dead, its massive body a testament to the risk they had taken. The alien refugees could barely contain their awe, whispering among themselves that humans had achieved what seemed impossible. A species small by comparison, yet brave, strong, and cunning enough to bring down a living weapon of unimaginable size. The victory at Thalvora became a symbol, not just for the survivors, but for every species still resisting the swarm. News spread quickly across the sector, both through secure channels and word of mouth, that humans did not just fight from orbit or with machines alone. They risked their lives directly against the Vratek's deadliest creatures, showing ingenuity and fearlessness. Commander Hayes addressed his team briefly, pride and relief evident in his voice. "We've bought these worlds time. Every life saved is a victory. This is how we turn the tide." The team nodded silently, knowing the battle was far from over, but confident that their actions had changed the course of the war. Each soldier felt a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration, the weight of responsibility heavy, but matched by the pride of accomplishment. The alien refugees began sharing more information about the swarm's patterns, weaknesses, and strategies, inspired by what they had just witnessed. Humanity had not only destroyed a monstrous weapon, they had also gained allies and trust. The galaxy watched and began to understand that Earth's Deathworlders were more than warriors. They were strategists, protectors, and a force willing to challenge the impossible. From the ridges of Thalvora, Hayes looked toward the horizon, where the swarm's distant forces stirred. He knew the next battles would be even more dangerous. But after facing the megapede and surviving, he also knew one undeniable truth. Humanity had the courage, skill, and absolute force to stand against the galaxy's deadliest enemy. The Aegis I hovered in orbit above the Vratek command planet, its immense hull reflecting the pale light of distant stars. For weeks, humans had studied the swarm's movements, learned their attack patterns, and prepared a strike that no enemy could have anticipated. Commander Hayes and the fleet leaders reviewed their final plan. Each ship, drone, and soldier had a precise role, every maneuver timed to perfection. The galaxy watched silently, waiting to see if the Deathworlders could deliver the impossible. As the operation began, swarms of Vratek fighters descended from orbit, confident that Earth's forces would be no match. They attacked in waves, their energy blasts tearing through space. Yet humans responded with terrifying precision. Drone swarms intercepted the raiders, fighter ships zipped through enemy fire, and coordinated counterattacks disabled enemy vessels in seconds. Every strike was executed with lethal efficiency, showing the swarm that these humans were nothing like the species they had encountered before. Below them, the Vratek command ship loomed, a fortress of dark metal and strange energy fields. It controlled the entire planetary defense network, directing raids, deploying traps, and coordinating attacks across the system. The Aegis I charged forward, its gravity lance cannon glowing with a deadly energy. The crew held their breath as the targeting systems locked on the swarm flagship, the massive weapon calibrated to release an unprecedented strike. Commander Hayes gave the order: fire. The cannon unleashed a stream of energy that tore through space like a silver spear. It struck the command ship's hull with a deafening force, and the ship shuddered violently as the energy cut through its defenses. Explosions rippled across its surface, tearing it apart from the inside out. The swarm's control network faltered immediately, and chaos erupted among their fleets. Vratek forces tried to regroup, but the human fleet was relentless. Every pilot, every drone, and every ship moved as one, striking with unmatched coordination. The swarm's morale shattered as they watched their command vessel destroyed. Confusion spread through their ranks, giving humans the advantage they needed. Fleets that had once moved like a single organism now scattered, vulnerable to human precision strikes. From the observation deck of the flagship, alien refugees cheered quietly, their voices trembling with disbelief and hope. The species that had feared extinction just weeks ago now watched humans dismantle the heart of the swarm with terrifying efficiency. One refugee whispered, "They are unstoppable," as the debris of the command ship floated silently into the void. A reminder of the Deathworlders' absolute force. The battle continued for hours, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. Humans pursued fleeing ships, disabling them with calculated strikes while protecting weakened colonies. Every move was designed to maximize survival and minimize collateral damage. The Vratek had never faced an enemy that combined strategy, strength, and ruthlessness in such perfect harmony. On the ground, resistance fighters on captured planets began reclaiming territory. Inspired by the human offensive, they organized strikes against remaining swarm units. Their courage fueled by hope, they worked in coordination with the Deathworlders, creating a multi-layered assault that the Vratek could not anticipate. Across the sector, the galaxy's perception of Earth shifted dramatically. No longer a distant, fragile planet, it was the epicenter of resistance. a symbol of defiance and overwhelming power. As the final Vratek ships retreated to uncharted regions, humans held the battlefield, surveying the wreckage of enemy fleets and shattered worlds. Hayes allowed himself a brief moment of satisfaction, knowing that humanity had achieved something extraordinary. The swarm had underestimated them, and that mistake had cost them dearly. Humans had not only survived, but had rewritten the rules of engagement in the galaxy, showing that even the deadliest enemy could be challenged with courage, intelligence, and absolute force. Reports from allied planets poured in, survivors speaking of liberation, cities being rebuilt, and colonies saved from annihilation. Humanity's presence had shifted the balance of power, giving hope to species that had long surrendered to despair. And through it all, the Aegis I stood as a symbol, the massive dreadnought that had delivered the decisive strike, proving that Earth's Deathworlders could change the fate of the galaxy in a single, precise blow. Commander Hayes watched the stars, knowing the swarm would eventually recover. But he also knew humanity had shown its true strength, that no force in the galaxy could ignore the Deathworlders again. The operation was complete, but the legend had just begun. The galaxy had witnessed Earth's absolute force, and every civilization would remember it for generations to come. With the swarm shattered and their command structure destroyed, the galaxy breathed a long-awaited sigh of relief. Worlds that had once been silent under Vratek rule now flickered with life, survivors venturing from bunkers and hidden outposts. The alien refugees who had once clung to hope with trembling hands now walked openly, smiling and rebuilding. Their faith in survival restored by the humans who had fought so fiercely on their behalf. On Thalvora and other reclaimed planets, humans worked alongside locals to restore basic infrastructure. Water systems were repaired, communication arrays rebuilt, and defenses reinforced against any possible return of the swarm. Deathworlder soldiers did not just fight, they guided, trained, and protected, showing the surviving populations that they were more than warriors. They were guardians, willing to stand with anyone against the darkness. Alien councils, once crippled and scattered, began to reconvene. Inspired by the humans' courage, they reorganized their governments and military units, seeking not only to defend, but to thrive once again. Representatives traveled to human fleets and bases, offering gratitude that words alone could never convey. They spoke of hope restored, civilization saved, and lives that would continue because Earth had answered the final SOS. In orbit around the liberated worlds, human ships patrolled the skies, ensuring that no swarm remnants could regroup or strike back. The Aegis I remained at the forefront, a constant reminder of the force humanity had unleashed. Its presence was both shield and symbol, inspiring confidence in allies and fear in enemies. The Deathworlders had become more than a species. They were a message to the galaxy that the weak could rise and the desperate could be saved. Among the alien survivors, the legend of the humans grew quickly. Stories of their daring battles, precise strikes, and willingness to risk everything spread across sectors. From simple whispers to official records, every account celebrated the courage of the species that had faced annihilation head-on. Children on distant worlds listened to tales of Commander Hayes and his team bringing down monstrous megapedes, of fleets moving like a single mind, and of the Aegis I striking the heart of the swarm, their imagination filled with humans as heroes larger than life, yet real and fearless. Earth itself became a point of fascination. Its harsh landscapes, extreme conditions, and history of survival explained the origins of the Deathworlders' extraordinary abilities. Scholars across liberated civilizations studied humanity, attempting to understand their strategies, resilience, and adaptability. Many concluded that the human species had been shaped by centuries of challenge, making them uniquely capable of delivering the decisive blow when the galaxy had almost given up. At the United Earth Council, celebrations were muted but meaningful. Leaders recognized that the intervention had not only saved other species, but had secured Earth's reputation in the galaxy. Diplomats prepared new alliances, treaties, and cooperative projects with the grateful civilizations, understanding that humanity's choice to act had forever changed the balance of power. No longer would Earth be seen as isolated or fragile. It was now a central figure in galactic affairs, respected and feared for its decisive action. even as the galaxy slowly rebuilt, whispers of future threats lingered. The Vroyatek, though weakened, still existed beyond mapped space, hiding, learning, waiting for the next opportunity. Yet humans did not panic. They had proven their strength, their ingenuity, and their courage. The lesson of the swarm would not be forgotten. For every civilization, the message was clear. When a species acts with absolute force, even the deadliest enemy can be challenged, and hope can be restored. As celebrations continued, the alien refugees prepared to move forward. Some choosing to resettle on new worlds, others returning to their home planets to rebuild, but all carried the same message of gratitude, sharing stories of humanity's arrival, their daring, and their unyielding determination. Across the galaxy, humans were now not only allies, but symbols of survival, courage, and the power to change destiny. Commander Hayes watched from orbit as the liberated worlds began to flourish. He knew the galaxy would never forget this moment, that humanity had answered a final SOS with overwhelming absolute force. Every species that had suffered, every voice that had called for help, now had a chance to live, to rebuild, to hope again. The Deathworlders had arrived, and their legend had begun. The galaxy would remember them forever, not as conquerors, but as guardians, as saviors, and as the force that had turned despair into life.